Close your eyes. Picture a caveman. Be honest. What appeared? A wild man wrapped in animal skins, hair everywhere, a heavy wooden club resting on his shoulder, barely speaking, living his entire life inside a dark, smoky cave. That picture feels so obvious it barely seems worth questioning. But what if almost every part of it is wrong? Not slightly wrong, fundamentally wrong. And the strangest part is that this myth didn't survive because of a lack of discoveries. It survived despite them, because hidden inside the word caveman is one of the biggest misunderstandings in human history. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And every movie, cartoon, and history book you've ever watched suddenly looks a little different. Let's begin with the cave itself. It's an obvious question. If ancient humans weren't really cave people, why do we keep digging them out of caves? At first glance, it sounds like the perfect proof. But imagine two campfires. One burns in an open meadow. The other burns beneath the roof of a dry cave. 1,000 storms pass. Snow falls. Rivers change course. Trees grow. Seasons come and go. Which fire leaves behind a trace? Probably the one inside the cave. The same is true for almost everything ancient humans left behind. Wood disappears. Animal skins decay. Branches collapse. Entire camps can dissolve back into the landscape until it's almost impossible to tell anyone was ever there. A cave plays by different rules. Stone walls shield fireplaces. Bones lie undisturbed. Stone tools remain where they were dropped. Sometimes even footprints survive. That's why caves seem to dominate the story. Not because they were permanent homes, but because they were nature's storage rooms. As one archaeologist famously put it, we remember the caves because the caves remembered them. That single sentence changes the picture. Instead of imagining generations trapped underground, picture a family crossing frozen valleys beneath a pale winter sky. Smoke rises from a temporary camp. Children gather around a fire. Hunters return carrying meat. Tomorrow they move again. The cave wasn't their world. It was one stop along the journey. And yet, that isn't the biggest misconception. The next mistake shaped the world's image of Neanderthals for more than a century. In 1856, workers uncovered unusual human bones in Germany's Neander Valley. Nobody had seen anything quite like them. Scientists carefully assembled the skeleton. Their conclusion seemed obvious. This individual had walked with a bent back and awkward posture. Before long, museums displayed the figure. Illustrators copied it. Films exaggerated it. The hunched, clumsy Neanderthal became an icon. There was only one problem. Years later, researchers realized the skeleton almost certainly belonged to someone who had lived with severe arthritis and other age-related conditions. Think about what that means. Imagine someone thousands of years from now finding the skeleton of a person with advanced spinal disease and deciding every human in the 21st century walked that way. That's remarkably close to what happened. One unhealthy individual quietly shaped how millions imagined an entire human species. By the time that mistake became clear, the stereotype had escaped into popular culture. And stereotypes are stubborn, especially when they're simple. But the ground kept giving up new clues. Each one pulled the old story apart. Imagine standing in Ice Age Europe. The air bites your face. Snow crunches beneath your feet. Somewhere beyond the trees, a mammoth moves across the frozen plain. Woolly rhinoceroses roam nearby. Large predators share the landscape. There's no supermarket, no shelter waiting for you, no rescue coming. Would you survive a week? Neanderthals survived there for hundreds of thousands of years. That alone should make us pause. They shaped stone with astonishing precision. They controlled fire. They crafted wooden spears. They knew where animals migrated. They understood changing seasons. Knowledge like that isn't luck. It's built slowly, shared around fires, passed from older hands to younger ones, generation after generation. And just when you think the picture couldn't become more human, another discovery changes everything. Some Neanderthal skeletons show broken bones that healed. Others reveal injuries that would have made hunting almost impossible. Yet these individuals didn't die immediately. They lived for years afterward, which raises an uncomfortable question. How does someone survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth if they can no longer hunt? There's only one answer. Someone stayed. Someone carried extra food. Someone protected them. Someone chose not to leave them behind. Compassion doesn't leave fingerprints in stone, but it leaves survivors. Those healed bones tell a story no words ever could. Behind every skeleton was a group. Behind every group was loyalty. And behind that loyalty was something deeply familiar. Not just intelligence, humanity. One image still refuses to disappear. The club. It's everywhere. Cartoons, movies, toy stores, costumes. The oversized wooden club has become almost inseparable from the idea of a caveman. But there's a problem. When researchers uncover hunting tools, they don't usually find giant clubs. They find carefully shaped spear points, stone blades, scrapers, knives, tools made with purpose. Picture yourself standing 20 meters away from a charging mammoth. Which would you rather hold? A heavy stick or a balanced spear designed for exactly that moment? Suddenly, the famous club feels less like history and more like a prop. Then came the discovery that erased one final boundary. For generations, Neanderthals were treated almost like another creature, close to us, but separate. That idea lasted until scientists unlocked something hidden inside ancient bones: DNA. When Neanderthal DNA was compared with that of living people, the results stunned researchers. Our ancestors hadn't simply crossed paths with Neanderthals. They had families together. Today, many people outside sub-Saharan Africa still carry small amounts of Neanderthal DNA, not as a curiosity, as inheritance. That realization changes the entire conversation. You stop looking at Neanderthals as strangers from a lost world. You start seeing them as relatives, distant ones, but relatives all the same. Which brings us back to the image you pictured at the very beginning. The cave, the club, the grunting brute. It's a simple story. Simple stories spread. Simple stories survive. Reality is rarely so cooperative. Every new discovery strips away another layer of that old cartoon, until something unexpected appears underneath. Not a monster, not a failed experiment, not a half-human creature stumbling through the darkness, but people. People who raised children beside campfires. People who crossed frozen landscapes. People who cared for the injured. People who adapted to a world that would overwhelm most of us. Maybe that's the biggest surprise of all. The farther back we look, the less alien they become. Because the greatest myth about cavemen was never that they lived in caves. It was believing they were somehow less human than we are. And every time another piece of their story emerges from the ground, it quietly reminds us of something we often forget. History isn't just the story of people who came before us. It's the story of people who made us possible.